Hi, welcome to Asian Sky Group, Asian Sky Media's virtual charter week. I'm Jeff Lowe, Managing Director of Asian Sky Group. For a copy of the 2020 charter report, please go to www.asianskymedia.com. Otherwise, enjoy the presentation. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to day 3 of Asian Sky Group's virtual charter week. I'm Jeff Lowe, Managing Director of Asian Sky Group, here with Daniel.
Hello, I'm Daniel. I'm the Charter Services Manager in Asian Sky Group.
Yeah, we're here for the Q&A session. Some questions we received when you had the chance to register for the event, and some we've seen since the report went online. It's available now on our website, www.asianskymedia.com. It's been out a day or two now. So some questions have come since then, but as I said, some were when you pre-registered. Got a whole bunch of questions. It's going to keep us busy for the next half an hour for sure. But just to sort of clear the decks a little bit, a lot of the questions were related to market size, related to the current state of the charter industry, impacts of COVID-19, and these are a lot of the pre-registration questions. And so all those topics we're not going to touch on because they're in the charter report. Also, when it comes to some special sections, we've got a big special section on flight activities. So some questions regarding charter flight levels, but that's addressed in the report. Also, illegal charter, that's addressed in the report. We've got a special section in the report also from Bermuda on registration and offshore registrations. So that's in the report. We also have occurring later a panel discussion, and that panel discussion will include VistaJet, OJets, and the Hong Kong BAC. So again, some of the questions that you've posed regarding FBOs and what charter operators are doing in the region, I encourage you to, if you will, tune into that panel discussion because it will answer all those questions for you. Great panel session that we had, a great interaction with all the members. So when you kind of go through all those and take them out of the list, and we had a great response, and so thank you everyone who submitted the questions. We are left with certainly enough that will fill the half hour, and I'm sure will lead to quite an interesting discussion between you and I. But first of all, Daniel, maybe a little bit of your background. Just tell us about yourself.
Sure. I have been working in the aviation industry for 9 years for now already, and then previously I worked in commercial airlines as a purser, and then I worked in a local company in Hong Kong, and I also worked in a European company, and I had extensive experience with direct customer service, and I know what the passengers want. I know how to serve my clients, and especially those kind of soft skills which make me now. And I have been in a business aviation industry for almost 2 years now, and it's so far so good. Okay.
It's, I would imagine, somewhat of an exciting career. A lot of work,
It is.
And certainly
the work you're giving me.
Well, no, we from the panel discussion we had, they sort of touched on it all, and that given the current environment, the amount of groundwork you have to do just for a simple charter quote, or even to get that charter quote confirmed, is abnormal at this point in time, given all the travel restrictions.
Especially the COVID-19 is making everybody's very busy and also very hard to do a charter flight.
So one of the reasons why a client or a customer would use someone like yourself is because you know your way around all these.
Yes.
So that's where you put the value. That's where the value comes from.
So when they give me a call, and for certain destination, I can already tell them what kind of requirement they are expecting to encounter, what kind of problems they are expecting to encounter, if that flight is feasible, and all those kind of things. So you kind of need an experienced professional to deal with this kind of situation.
Exactly. So sort of on that theme, we're going to start working our way down through the questions. First question that we have is, I think there's a perception, or I guess there's a question relating to how easy is it to access China, particularly when I'm coming from the US and Europe. And maybe the way to answer that is, because I'm not sure if he's referring in today's environment of COVID-19, or the question is just relating to under normal circumstances. So maybe it's a two-pronged question.
Okay, in general, as broker, I would probably look at the flight route. If the route is flying over to a certain country, for example, if you're flying from Europe and most likely you will fly over Russian airspace,
Yes.
or the other routes through Middle East, which would be longer. And Russian airspace, it typically takes some time. And as the authority just need to take some
When you
lead
say
time.
take some time, get all the approvals and everything
Yes,
else.
the permits and everything, yeah.
So is the
Overflight
problem
permit.
China, or is it just all the countries you have to overfly to get to China?
Overfly, I would say. Yeah.
All right.
Yep. And
that obviously is even exasperated more in current environment because of all the travel restrictions
Yeah.
and COVID-19.
And from the US, and then we can probably say because the long haul aircraft, probably a G650 ER can do long stop.
Yep.
But
Yep.
like if
Yep.
all other aircraft from US, most likely they will do
Right,
like
they'll
one
stop.
one stop. So they will be either stopping in Alaska or somewhere
Yeah.
else, Japan,
Yeah, Japan,
sometimes.
yes.
So you also have to sort that out. So that is the part of the things that I will look into. And the other thing is the airports in China. Some airports in China, they are military and civilians airports.
Yeah.
And so, for example, non-China B registrations aircraft, they want to fly to those airports is not okay, or it takes a long time to approve, or you really have to have a valid reason why you're not using a Chinese aircraft,
Right.
and what are the passengers' profile, and those kind of things. And also, because in China, there's not a lot of GA airport. So the airport in China is already very congested. So some airports, they have their restriction. And when we are talking about that, Beijing, Shanghai, those airports, they have a time limit, time restriction, a certain time you can land, certain time you cannot land, those kind of things.
So is China the worst in Asia, or are there even?
I don't think it will be. I think it's
Okay.
opening up. I don't think
Okay.
it's worse.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. When you look at the clients, another question here: are they typically corporate clients, or are they private individuals?
I think.
What's the trend at the moment, and maybe what do you see 6, 12 months from now,
I would
or
say
in the future?
I would say APAC area for now most likely is ultra high net worth individuals. They are the dominant. Of course, sometimes we see some corporates fly, but most likely they are US-based company or European-based
Right,
company
okay.
hiring for their employee when they are doing like a business trip in Asia.
Right.
But when we are talking about in APAC region, for APAC company, are they corporate dominant? I don't think so. I
Right.
think it's still for the rich people, for that kind of niche people that they are.
You think that's going to change?
I think it's a learning curve.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a
I
learning
likewise
curve.
agree. I think
Yeah.
over time it has to as well. We're counting on that.
Yeah.
Because I think the growth at the end of the day has to come from the corporate side as well.
It is.
It does.
Yeah.
So, another question. Actually, this is one about whether there are any apps, iPhone apps and so on. And again, I'm just going to say, there's another section in the report that addresses that. So I drive you back to the report. There's a question here regarding, are there any Asian bodies lobbying for special treatment of private aviation and charter in the region?
I think you're the expert.
Yes, that one comes back to me. And, okay, so it was kind of a leading question there. It comes back to me, and obviously we do. In the region, we have AsBAA, the Asia Pacific Business Aviation Association. So really, it is their mandate to take on these issues and promote them with all the regulatory authorities throughout the region. There's the main body, AsBAA itself, but then it also has a number of regional chapters around the region. And again, their mandate is to, because again, Asia is made up of a large number of countries, all with different regulations, jurisdictions, registrations, and so on and so forth. So it's almost each one has to be tackled individually, unfortunately. So we have regional chapters as well, and their mandate is to hopefully work with the local authorities and do what they can to make sure that business aviation gets the visibility that it needs. And if there are regulations that need to be changed or issues that need to be raised, make sure they get to the right levels. So it's an ongoing process. It's something that's not going to happen overnight.
Jeff,
It's going to take some lobbying for a number of years.
Let me give you a follow-up question on this regard. Since you're the board of governor,
yes.
I just wonder what AsBAA has done so far to for the charter side in business aviation. Any special problems that you guys have voiced out to the government?
I don't think it's necessarily been the issues that have been raised have necessarily been to tackle. Been there for the charter alone.
Okay.
I think there are bigger issues that the industry faces that ultimately, if they're resolved, it's going to help the charter industry as well. And that comes down to parking, slots, cabotage rules, these sorts of things, because that affects not only charter, just any user. So I think we're still at that higher level at the moment. I think AsBAA hasn't broken it down to where they specifically have an agenda that they're pursuing just for charter. There are bigger issues that affect the whole industry, and they're still trying to tackle those, to be honest. So,
okay, fair enough.
Okay. All right, maybe a little bit more specific in the market. Look at the market. It's currently dominated by large aircraft, for sure. Long range, large cabin aircraft, probably 75% of the market out here. So is there an opportunity, do you feel, for midsize or light jets?
I certainly...
Again, looking at the report, the biggest category that had the highest growth was light jets. Now, maybe that's a harbinger of the future. Maybe that's just a one-off. But what do you think for midsize and light jets? What's the future?
Well, I think I can first tell you why the reason is for now there's no midsize. There's not enough midsize or light jet. The reason is because first, when we are talking about midsize or light jet, we are talking about giving a very cheap price, for the charter. But in Asian market, the infrastructure, the price are quite expensive.
Yes.
And probably if you fly short haul,
to give people an idea, I mean, you've got the aircraft cost, and then you have all the third-party charges, and so what's the relative ratio there? Just to give people an idea.
I think it's.
My experience is, okay, if your airplane cost is 100, well, your third-party costs are at least 100 or more. Like it's as much as it is for the airplane, the third-party costs, right? So you're doubling it.
Yeah, in Asia, yes.
Yeah, in Asia,
yes. But like in US or in Europe, it's not the case.
Not the case. Yeah. Not the case. So mid-size and light jets then?
Mid-size and light jet, it's just the infrastructure. The price of the infrastructure is very expensive, and when we are doing a light jet, it's just a competitive advantage of a light jet or mid-size jet. Go a little bit lower, and then
But in my past, the issue for mid-size and light jets has been, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the requirements here for charter tend to involve 6 to 8 passengers, maybe. They're bigger groups that wouldn't be handled with a light jet. And also typically they may have quite a high luggage requirement. And so a light jet may not be ideally suited to the typical requirement that an Asia charter has. Because again, you mentioned before, most of the charters are private aviation. So you got individuals going on holiday. We've got golf clubs, we've got suitcases and everything else. And whether all that can fit into a Lear 75 or something is another question.
Well, yes, it is actually a good question. But I think the reason why we're lacking of like a 1-person or 2-person charter is because this kind of cheaper product does not exist currently.
Okay.
That's why we don't have a 1-person or 2-person business jet.
So there is an opportunity in the market.
There is an opportunity.
There is an opportunity. Okay.
Yeah, but I think in order to seize the opportunity, first we have to lower the cost of the infrastructure, which have to handle by the higher level of the government.
Yes.
And secondly, I think the regulation among all the Asian country have to be deregulated in order to do that. Yeah. Because
that'll get done by Sunday, right?
Of course, sure. Like tomorrow.
That's going to take a while.
Yeah.
That's going to take a while. And partly because for a lot of these countries, the revenue that you get from, if you will, operations and airport services and so on is significant. It's revenue for that country, and they're not about to necessarily give that up.
Let me say more about the deregulation thing.
Okay.
When we are talking about light jet or very light jet in APAC region, is not very happening in China, in East Asia country, but I think it's rather popular in ASEAN country, Thailand, Malaysia,
Yes.
those kind of thing, because they kind of have a mini open sky agreement. And then they are opening up for their ASEAN countries only, and that's why they have quite a few, the largest number of the light jets over there.
Next question then.
Sure.
And again, it's just it somewhat on the subject you just mentioned about China and Asian. So it sounds like China needs to do more to open up their market to charter.
I think is the regulation. It's more about the regulation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then for the next question, which is, why is it taking so long? It's the same answer. It's because it's regulations.
Yeah, it's
you're talking about CAAC changing,
yeah.
and that'll always take a long time. Okay. Next question then. Do you think, looking at the charter market, looking at the charter fleet that we have out in the Asia Pacific region, do you think something's missing as regards to an aircraft type or an aircraft category that we don't have enough of? And you're in trials and tribulations of sourcing aircraft for charters and everything else. Is there I wish I had one of these in the region and that would just solve all my problems? Do you have those kind of moments or not?
Yeah, I would say a very light jet. As very light jets is kind of like non-exist in Asia country. In this APAC market. Light jet there is, but very light jet no. For example, a CJ2 is kind of something
and by
like
the way,
that.
That was specifically one of the questions.
Yeah.
What do you see in the market for very light jets?
I think
like a Honda jet, for instance.
Yeah, Honda jet just came up, and I think it's good for domestic China, good for ASEAN country, and I think people. I think as long as the infrastructure cost can be lower, and I think there's a good opportunity that we can seize all those little 1 or 2 person business trip.
Yeah, but maybe if I'm someone listening to this right now, I'm saying to myself, yeah, but those infrastructure costs aren't going to change. And so I immediately go, well, that means there is no market for the very light jets because I don't see the infrastructure changing. I mean, that's been an issue that's been around in the Asia Pacific region for a long time. And I'm not aware of there being any steps taken by any country to significantly reduce their infrastructure costs. Like no big announcement that Hong Kong Airport was lowering its landing fees by 50%. No, I mean, it's not happening.
It's not happening. Yeah. Well, that's why we need AsBAA to jump in.
Okay, no, good question. But on this side, the panel discussion that we had, that if you tune in and watch the panel discussion, COVID-19 could change people's perspectives. And so the expectation is that probably the charter market will recover long before the commercial airline business will recover. In that sense, will there be an impetus for the airports then to look at infrastructure costs and what can be supported by a business jet versus a Cathay Pacific, 777-300ER?
Yeah, there may be a way, but what I actually think is the government, somebody have to do something to let the government realize if the cost of infrastructure is high and is actually doing damage to the entire GA business.
So you need a champion.
Really? Yes, we do.
An organization, and from my experience in Hong Kong, you also need an individual. Probably a high-profile business jet user, or maybe a group of them that likewise can petition the government. I think AsBAA can do so much, but at the same time, if you had a users group or something that likewise was using their relationships and their avenues to bring these issues up at a high level, I think likewise that would probably serve the industry well. Okay. Let's see. Next question then. On the other end of the scale, we talked about very light jets, but on the other end of the scale, you've got BBJs and ACJs, and if you will, corporate airliners, if you want to call them. What do you think about that market and its future needs in the market?
I think it was.
Do you get a lot of requirements for them, or
not significantly high, but it's always so constant, and it's always we know who are the person who require this kind of service. It's always only them.
Right.
Yeah, and since we have a lot of large jet in Asia Pacific region, and a lot of traveler, they tend to use ultra long haul aircraft to perform the flight instead of airliner. Yeah, and as I mentioned, I think a corporate jet is more for the corporate business to use it, and for individual 1 or 2 person flying long haul, do they really need that much of space? I doubt that. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. More specifically, we talked a bit about China. There's a specific question here. What are you impressions or, again, future prospects of the Malaysian and Thai market?
I think now that
I think both are quite different. From my experience,
both are quite different.
Yep.
I think because the economy is shifting from East Asian country to Southeast Asian country.
Yes.
And Thailand and Malaysia, they are Southeast Asian country, of course.
Yep.
And when we look at it geographically, Thailand is in the center of the Southeast Asian country.
Yes.
So I think like a mid-size aircraft, light jet would be a good opportunity to be put there for charter, because they can fly 2 hours and get to, in Thailand especially, because it can fly 1 or 2 hours and get to any other ASEAN country.
But Thailand's a fairly restrictive market.
It is. Cabotage.
Particularly cabotage, right?
Yes.
Is it? So in order to do domestic flights within Thailand, I have to have a Thai registered airplane?
Yes.
Yes. Are they the only country like that?
No.
No.
I mean, some Asian country, they also have that. I think Philippines, they are like that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Right.
I think in Taiwan, it's the same situation. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just taking a look at some of the other questions here, and this is probably the maybe the best one to end on, because it's kind of the be all and the end all. Can a company survive on charter alone
Well, from my perspective, no.
in the Asia Pacific region?
No, because first
And why not?
First thing, I don't see any operator. They solely rely on charter in Asia. I mean, even when we are talking about in the globe, it's just VistaJet. That's what I know. All the other company, they are doing management. But when we're looking at VistaJet, they have a large fleet size, 73 aircraft available for charter. And when we're looking at Asia operator, and do they have many aircraft? I don't think so. So when they don't have that many aircrafts, can they have a bigger synergy to generate profit?
Yes.
And I doubt that. But Jeff, I know since you are the consultant in GA, so you are probably expert on this as well.
I've got I was interested to get your view, because I obviously have mine as well, and I think likewise. Surviving on charter alone is a real challenge, and partly because from my experience, you need to, and it gets back to the same issue that you mentioned. You need to be able to generate flight hours. And you need, because that's what you're getting paid for. You're getting paid by the hour. So in order to be successful and make money in the end of the day, you need to achieve a high utilization. And for me, that's 800 hours, that type of level. And in order for you to do that in Asia Pacific, it's a tough challenge. Again, going back to the regulatory requirement you talked about before, and taking 3, 4, 5 days to get permits, your ability to, do trip per trip, and if you will, get high utilization out of the aircraft is a big challenge, because you may be stuck sitting for 3, 4 days waiting for a permit. And that means those are lost days. You don't get them back. So the ability to, the available days is much more restricted in the Asia Pacific region, in my impression. And again, I think you touched on it. The third-party costs are very high. I know they're just a pass-through, but it's just a much more expensive environment to operate as well. Pilots are more expensive. They expect different kinds of packages than you would get for a pilot operating in the U.S. environment or a European environment. So I think when you look at the whole DOC side of it, again, it's just more expensive as well. So I think the margins are much tighter. One of the issues that we talked about in the panel as well is illegal charter. So I think it's a bigger issue out here for charter operators that they have to face, and that's lost revenue that you just don't get back if you lose that business to someone who's doing an illegal charter. Yeah. So there's all kinds of obstacles out here. A lot of it doing with the maturity of the market, hasn't come down the learning curve yet. So all kinds of things.
Yeah, from what I see, more than 50% of the operator in APAC region, the charter side of business is not their main income. It's just ancillary for them. Yeah,
they're just trying to use the aircraft to help manage the expenses of running the airplane, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
that's right.
So last, and this goes back more just to a general question and your role. So if I'm a first time user looking to charter an aircraft out here in the Asia Pacific region, what should I consider? What are the do's and don'ts? What are the traps? What's the advice that you would give to someone coming out to the Asia Pacific region first and looking to charter an airplane?
Yeah, I think the first time charterer would probably
other than calling you, of course. Okay,
of course, I know. But please call me. But the thing
this is where we flash on the screen his phone number. Okay, all right.
Yeah. The thing is. The first-time charterer would probably think, do I need a broker to help me to book a flight? I can contact the operator. So I think it really comes down to the question that
and they're thinking that because in their home market, that's what they do.
Yeah.
So like in the U.S., I wouldn't use a broker. I would just go direct to whoever.
And I think in APAC region, the information of the operator is not fully disclosed. For example, financial status of an operator, their safety record, and that really come down to me to kind of like sort it out for you. So I wouldn't suggest a company with a bad financial record to my client, because if my client cancel the flight and want to have the partial refund, no refund for them. And so also the fact that if you only work with the operator, you can't have the access with the other airplanes in the region. And as I said before, the market is not very open not very transparent in APAC region. Sometimes you don't know which operator got which aircraft because some of them, they don't advertise it.
So obviously, the brokers don't work for free. There's a cost associated with it. It is. But I think what you're trying to get around to is that added cost is worth it because you're getting great value back from them.
Jeff, you just mentioned added cost. Sometimes it's not the case. It's not always the case because as a broker, because I have larger amounts of the deal with the operator, sometimes they give me special discount. So when you book directly with the operator or book directly with other broker or even me, I can probably match the price.
Right. Okay.
So when I can match the price, and then you probably need somebody to help you sort out all other things instead of just working with the operator, because the operator, they focus on flying the plane, and the broker focus on the whole experience.
Well, that leads me back to another question then, when we talked about whether or not the charter companies are able to be financially viable out here.
Yeah.
And it gets back to your comment just now, but that it's not just about chartering the airplane. I think I see a lot of the charter or even the brokers out here getting into managing the whole experience for the client.
It is.
And so there's the potential then not just doing the aircraft charter, but they're going to need a resort or a hotel. They're going to need cars. They want to maybe have as part of their stay other trip experiences, which may involve maybe chartering another airplane or chartering a seaplane or chartering a helicopter. So is that a new trend in the industry, or it's always been there and that's where the industry's going, or what are your thoughts?
I think some of the broker in the markets, they kind of already transform themselves like a concierge.
Yeah.
But if you are a concierge, not from the business aviation industry and trying to do business aviation, you will fail because you basically just don't have the information to tap in this market.
Yeah. It would seem the hard part is the charter side. So
Yes,
you better master that. The
Yes.
other is fairly straightforward.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to minimize it, but it would seem the core is being able to do the actual aircraft charter part of it, because that's the most challenging. All the other, you can then build on that, right?
And some of them do it in the other way. For example, I would collaborate with a good concierge company, and they help me to sort out those hotel and all those transportation. And I have good vendor. I give them contacts, and we just combine a whole experience for the clients. And of course, as a broker myself, I would be informed. I would be in the center of everything to coordinate.
Right.
Yeah.
And so getting back then maybe to more of the dynamics of the charter and the quote and everything itself. What do the brokers do to protect themselves? Are brokers just connecting the dots between the client and the charter provider, or do the brokers take a more active role in the transaction? How does that work?
Okay, there's two types of broker in this world.
Okay.
One, kitchen broker. That's how we call it.
Kitchen broker.
Kitchen broker.
Kitchen broker.
You know what kitchen broker is? Kitchen
right.
broker is just one individual. They're sitting at home. When they have inquiry, they call the other operator. They give them the operator contract. They just line up everything and get a commission out of it, instead of doing any value added service.
Right.
And sometimes I would say, I'm sorry if I offend anyone, those kitchen broker are quite irresponsible. And which lead to a failed charter. For example, the passengers pay for the money. Eventually, the flight couldn't deliver. It's mainly because of the broker's fault. Yeah, and a good broker like Asian Sky Group,
managing expectations is a big part of the business.
It is. It is.
So when a lot of times when you talk about a failed charter, I would assume that somewhat relates to expectations not being met and the customer's disappointed.
Yeah, you really have to have a very fast response because, as a broker, you mainly deal with the personal assistant of the boss. Right. And the personal assistant is, I think, a good personal assistant, good executive assistant. They are very detail minded.
Yes.
So you have to be even more detail minded, and in a step
I would say
ahead
that's why she's in that
PA.
role, is because she is the detailed-minded person.
Otherwise
the boss just says, "I want to go here," and she has to figure it all out. So,
because the boss will blame her instead of blame me in the end. Yeah.
So I interrupted you there. So how do you do different at Asian Sky Group?
Well, I think for me,
I know you're not a kitchen broker, so I know that.
I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have a kitchen in here.
Yeah, exactly. No kitchen. So,
I think it really comes down to, for example, the product knowledge. You first have to know your product well. You know the operator well, and also all those regulation, countries by countries. And you always get constant update. And of course, you have to update your clients as well. And a personal mind are unable to do that. You need to have some help with the IT. So I think in ASG, we developed a rather good IT system, our secret weapons, in order,
don't tell them everything, okay?
In order to handle this kind of situation, our database is very strong, and we know all those industrial trend, and of course we are doing the charter reports. We have everything, and so those kind of knowledge can help me to deliver a successful flight.
And on sort of more basic needs, certainly I can speak to it for Asian Sky Group. We also make sure that we ourselves as a broker carry an insurance policy and to make sure that in the end, the client, there are no gaps in any of the insurance coverage that we have. Because if there's any shortfalls with the operator itself, they're also covered through our insurance policy.
Yeah, so you're kind of double insured.
Well, you're double insured, but we make sure that there's no gaps, is the way I like to put it. And also, one of the big issues a lot of our clients have when it comes to flying in and out of China, or Chinese clients, is they do want to pay in RMB. Yeah. And so that's another payment, if you will, accessibility that we have. So if the client wants to pay in RMB, we can handle a local transaction as well in local currency.
Yeah, that helps a lot of our Chinese clients.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So any last comments you think? What's going to happen post COVID-19?
I think
the market is, as you can see in the charter report, the market is down. It's down extremely.
Yeah.
The curve is pretty much flatlining down around zero. Mm-hmm. And so, what do you see happening when we do pull out of COVID-19? What's going to happen?
I keep it positive, very positive. Yeah. I think there would be a huge rebound right after COVID. And as I said, the ultra high net worth individual are the dominant in these markets. Right. So once the COVID-19 is over, and they are very hungry to travel, hungry to do their business, they're very hungry to do their leisure trip. And of course, right after COVID-19, and there's kind of still scared a little bit about if I do commercial, would it affect my health? Would I get COVID? So that's where we come in.
Yep.
So I think the market, I think the charter business right after COVID-19 would rebound quickly.
Yep. No.
Yeah.
Fully agree. Mm-hmm. And in again, looking back at the charter report we put out, we had done a survey, and certainly that optimism is reflected in the results from the survey as well, where 60% of the respondents likewise felt very optimistic about the market. 30% were a little bit unsure. But I'll take that 90% any day. So I think you're right on the money when you say we'll be the first ones to recover, hopefully on the charter side from post COVID-19. Anyways, that wraps it up for the Q&A.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all the questions you submitted. It was greatly appreciated. As I mentioned, this is just day 3. Day 4, we've got our panel discussion. Please stay tuned and watch that. Very informative on the market as well. And then also we've got a number of podcasts that will be released as well, specific to the charter market. So thanks for your time.
Thank you.